Greetings, everyone, and welcome to 4Point Pathways, our podcast where we talk about things, forms, and operational related for various organizations. And what we're going to talk about today is accessibility and forms. So a lot of you are familiar with the broad concept of accessibility for disabled persons. And every different country and some different regions within countries have some sort of accessibility guidelines, and often there's accessibility legislation. In the US, it's called ADA. In the US, it's called ADA, the Accessibility for Disabled for Americans. No, that's not what it's called. Hold on.
Americans with Disabilities Act.
American with Disabilities Act. American with Disabilities Act. In America, in the US, it's called ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it has certain rules and regulations. A lot of them extend to physical access, so ramps and accessible doors, handicap parking, things like that, signage, all of those kinds of things. So there's a lot of aspects, but there's one area of it that affects us as technology folks, okay? And that's around what we classify as web accessibility. And for most organizations, they look at web accessibility and they look at their website, and that's good. They need to make your website accessible. You need to make it easier for persons with disabilities, especially visual disabilities, but also with physical disabilities, to make it easier to use and navigate your website. This is not just a regulation or a law. This is just good user experience. And often what we find is that when you make your website more accessible, all right, every user benefits from that. It's just better organized, it's better, it's easier. But one of the areas that we've noticed over the past few years have been a significant challenge for a lot of large organizations is around their online forms. And by online forms, I don't mean the HTML forms, the contact forms or things like that, although those need to be accessible too, and there's specific rules for that. But it's more around the PDF documents that organizations have pushed up onto their websites, that they have a forms portal. People can go in and go, oh, I need to download this to inform you of a change of my status, to change my address, to do a range of different things, health claims, all of those kinds of things. And in a lot of those cases, those documents, those forms never got touched, never got looked at, as far as we can tell, from an accessibility perspective. And many of them fail miserably, but they're on your website. And all content on your website counts under web accessibility. Better is just having documents like that, even if they're not on your website, even if they're given out by branch personnel or given out by a dealer or used by a dealer. Well, they should be accessible if they're in an electronic format, because that's just good business and that's a better user experience. So what are some of the challenges that we see? So we've gone into some organizations and done some work for them around making their forms more accessible. And one of the common things that we see that we're completely missed, these are we'll go onto a website, we'll go pull down a handful of forms, a random sample of forms, and we'll find that half of them are actually images. They're not forms. They're not Word documents that you saved as a PDF. They're not fillable. They are meant for one purpose and one purpose only, so that someone can download them, print them, physically fill them out, maybe sign them, okay, scan them, send them back into you. Well, never mind accessible, that's just a horrible user experience. And we've talked about that in a couple of other episodes, but that's just bad user experience. Why are you making people do that? Okay, that form needs to be an online activity or needs to be solved in some other kind of a way. But for a handicapped person, wow, that's just nasty. Because what happens is they got to bring it up on the screen, okay? Because they can't print it because it's not Braille. So they can't use the printed version, or they have to get someone to help them. Again, not accessible. So then they bring it up on the screen. They just want to know what the document is. What are they supposed to fill out? So then they try to get their screen readers to read it. Wait, it's an image. Can't read the screen readers. Oh, okay. Well, but they have a license for Adobe Acrobat from the document cloud. So that has OCR. Okay, that's good. That's good. So it will then try to read the entire document. Okay, if it was effectively scanned at a high resolution, it does a pretty good job. But what's it going to do? It's going to read the whole document. Now imagine this: is you've got a form that's got a name, address, account number, the old one, and then you need to fill out the new one, and it's got description text. It's just going to read it all as if it was a giant page. Why? Because it is a giant page. It's just going to read it all. Well, that doesn't help anybody. They don't know where the fields are and what they should do. So even if they were going to use an overlay technology, they were going to put the fields on themselves if they could. They're going to try to type, even if they're going to try to paste an image of their signature on, they can't find the signature field because that form doesn't help. Okay. So it's a bad user experience for everybody, but it blocked the person who had challenges associated with that. All right. So that's good. You say, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We're going to put it up now and we're going to do it from Word. So I'm going to save it from Word. Oh, okay. That's better, except so the screen readers can read it now, and Adobe Acrobat can read it now, and it's going to give, but it's still a document. It's still one page of document. It doesn't know that that line there, that box there, is a field that meant to be a field. Okay, because you didn't tell it, I want that to be a field. You just drew it so that only somebody with strong visual acuity can fill that out. Anybody else can't do that. It's also not fillable online without a lot of work and effort. Okay, I'm not handicapped in any way associated with that. And I'm very good with Adobe Acrobat, and I know how to use all the tools, and I don't want to fill that out. So I end up printing it and filling it out by hand, which means you have to re-enter. You have to read my handwriting. That's going to be hard. You have to re-enter all of that data. It's just a bad user experience. You shouldn't do that with forms, period. And you're probably breaking the law when you do that. Okay, you're probably non-compliant with whatever the regulations are that are governing you at this point in time. So then you went to the next layer and you said, no, I made it fillable. Oh, good. Because now Acrobat, when you go to fill it out, can actually read that you're on the name field. And it'll tell you, hey, you're on the name field, and this is a text box. Okay, and now when they click in it, they'll know what they should be typing into it. All right, and they can go to the next field, and they can go to the next field. Okay, and it makes it easier. And you can even customize how you give that information, so you can actually give them the help text, or they could tab to the little I that you put above it, and they could pull up the help text. So that's much, much better as a user experience. You still got the challenge of how are you going to get that data, because you're still going to force them to print it and probably physically sign it, even though they probably don't need a physical signature. See the last episode where we talked about signatures and when you don't need signatures and how to apply digital signatures. So maybe you're still forcing them to do that. Okay, but at least they were able to do that. However, a bunch of things you should be really aware of. Often you'll get a scenario where, oh, I did the word and then I brought it across and then I overlaid all of the pieces. Okay, I'm going to give you this one hint. Check the tab order. One of the things that happens is that we create these fields, and the PDF tools that we use remember the order that we created them in and think that's the tab order. I've used many, many forms where I've gone to fill them out online, and you may have seen this even on HTML forms. It often happens where you hit the tab key, okay, and it goes to some random field over there. And then you hit the tab key and it goes back over here. And it's jumping all over the place when you're hitting tab. And you say, well, yeah, but that doesn't matter because people click on it. No, people with physical handicaps using computer environments will often use the keyboard to move, and they'll use spacebar to select things and the arrow keys. So you need to make sure that the forms that you're having them fill out, okay, enable all of that. Okay, and so that the tab order goes to a logical place, and that when it goes to it, one of the classic examples is, oh, I need to get a questionnaire. So I've got a question, and I've got a disagree through, and then 5 check boxes. Well, hold on, they're going to tab through each one of those 5 check boxes to get to the one, then spacebar. Then tab down here, then tab through each one of those. So each one of those is going to have to read the question over and over and over again. So a design that often makes sense in a paper style may not make sense when you translate that to a fillable PDF style and you want to make it accessible. It may not be the simplest, easiest thing to do. You might want to change that to a pull down where they could see, oh, I select those because now I can get the list of the pull downs, click that. All right. And then you're just reading the question once, not reading the question 5 times as somebody tabs through it. Right. One of the things that we encourage organizations to do when they're testing this is test it with a functional limitation. Okay. Test it with your monitor turned off. See if you can use it. Right. If you can get a screen reader or the Adobe Acrobat reader or whatever tools you're using for accessibility to actually read it back to you. Use it without a mouse. Use it only with the keyboards. Use it with only a mouse and no keyboards, okay? Where I'm now speaking into it and translating. I've got translation software that's hearing my voice and typing into the field. Does it know how to get to the field? Well, it does if you design the form correctly. But the final environment where we want to try to get you is to not use fillable PDFs. What we want to get is to use online, browser-supported, fully integrated forms that are capturing that data, that are guiding every user, whether they have a handicap or not. Every user is guided through the process and only asked the questions that are absolutely necessary to answer. And that data is pushed back into your system so you don't have to re-enter it. So that data is pulled from your systems so that I can say, in my classic example of a change of address, this is your old address. Now the screen reader can read it to you and it says, enter your new address, enter the first line of your address, enter the second line of your address, enter your city, and it guides you through that process. And things like tabs work and pull downs work and arrow keys work and all of those work the way the browser is expecting them to work. And that's one of the things that really enhances the user experience for everyone. What we want to do is get to that environment because that's better for your data operationally. It reduces your costs, reduces your maintenance. You don't have to maintain a separate version of it as the PDF and an online version, and it makes it fully accessible. Now you can deliver all of those pieces of information that individual needs to understand what you're asking of them, when you're asking it. You're only asking the things that need to be asked. There's no sections on the form that say, if this is true, don't fill this out, okay? Which we get, and those cause massive confusion for every user. Because that's the other thing about this, is it really isn't about accessibility. It isn't really about compliance. It's about a better user experience for everybody. Because when you do all of these good things that you're supposed to do, everybody benefits. It makes it easier, clearer. You get better data, you get faster data, you got a happier customer who's getting the experience they expect from you. They didn't have to print anything. They didn't have to fill out a piece of paper and then scan it and send it into you. They were able to do it online. They were able to do it on a mobile device. And it prompted them and it guided them and it made sense through the process. These are often just the basics that we want to try to get to because it makes it better for everyone. So I want you to go back and look at those online forms that you have up on your forms portal or that people can download from your website. Pick a handful of them, look at them. If there's an image, it's not compliant. All right. If there's a form that was saved from Word and it's got a bunch of fields on it, but the fields aren't marked properly, it's not compliant. You got a good PDF, it's fillable, person can fill it out. Maybe they can even submit it via email and they don't have to do anything with it. Okay, go check the tab order, go check your alt text, go check your actual descriptive text associated with every single one of those field elements to make sure that they're guiding that person through that. Go check for things like multiple check boxes that are going to be read multiple times. Try to fill it out, okay, with your screen turned off. It's very entertaining, right? But how many of those can we move online? Even when we need a signature, we can apply a digital signature online. We can produce a PDF that somebody can sign. We can create those mechanisms. How many of those should be online? How many of them are today, right? Those are going to save you money and make a better user experience. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this was informative for you, and we'll talk to you in a future episode. Take care. Bye-bye.